All right, I see Cody is joined as well. We can go ahead and get started here. So I'll go ahead and call the Halifax Finance Committee meeting to order. Today is Monday, February 5th. It is 6:02 p.m. In attendance from the Finance Committee is Michael Bennett, Frank Johnston, Cheryl Zarella-Burke, EJ Bryan, Jim Walters, Bill Smith, and myself, Todd Dargy. This meeting is being conducted remotely and recorded by Area 58. First order of business on the agenda is the acceptance of the Finance Committee meeting minutes from January 22nd. Has everyone had a chance to take a look through those? Any questions, comments, concerns on them?
Look good to me.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, hearing none, I guess, would somebody like to make a motion then to approve the meeting minutes from January 22nd?
So moved.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Second.
Thank you, Michael. Roll call vote. Frank?
Yes, on a meeting minutes from January 22nd, 2024.
EJ?
Yes, for the record, I was not in attendance of the meeting.
Oh, that's right. Sorry about that. Yeah, so we'll mark you as staying from the vote. Sorry about that.
Yep.
Jim?
Yes, on the meeting minutes.
Bill?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Cheryl?
Yes.
And I am a yes as well. Motion carries 6-0. Next item on the agenda was the reserve fund transfer request. I don't think we had any for tonight, right? Sandy, I didn't see anything come across or anything. I think we're still waiting just on the updated form from the last meeting though for the
Right,
roof there.
I'll try to get that out to you this week.
Okay. All right, sure. No problem. And then the next item on the agenda was the fiscal 25 budget liaison update. So I think everyone's now gone through and met with Cody, Sandy, and the department heads. I think I was the last one. So I met last Monday to go through that in detail. So I think, you know, the next course of action will be to, and I know a few of the department heads I think are making some budget adjustments, but, you know, largely the next steps will then be to have them you know, participate in these meetings to take the full committee through those budgets. So, which kind of leads to the next item, which is the department budget review, I guess. So, Cody, we didn't have anybody scheduled, I guess, for tonight, right? But I guess, are we putting a schedule together, I guess, of those folks?
So, you know, I wanted to talk to the committee on how you want to handle this process moving forward. So obviously we've changed it a little bit this year in the sense of efficiency. And, you know, you can let me know what you're thinking. You know, my thought would be, I don't see a need to have every department in, particularly our smaller departments,
Right.
where there's, you know, no changes other than, you know, wage changes. Again, it's up to you. I would recommend still having in, you know, your larger departments, police, fire, highway,
COA.
yeah, council on aging, library, municipal maintenance, but, you know, like more your general government where there's aren't many changes. Again, it's up to you, but your liaisons have gone through. I hope everyone found that process to be helpful.
Very. It was
yes.
excellent.
So I guess you guys let me know what you're thinking. If you're in agreement with kind of my thoughts, I can run through several of our just general government departments that have been pretty finalized and were pretty simple to go through in the liaison aspect of it. But again, let me know where you want to go with this.
Yeah, no, I think that makes total sense. Anybody else have any opinion?
Yeah, I agree. I think that makes a lot of sense, and we just don't have to go over people who are, you know, level funded, and
Right.
you know, nothing's really changing. So it saves us some time and saves them some time. Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so let's proceed, I guess, with that. I guess, Cody, for I guess are we able to kick off, I guess, next week, or?
Yeah, we can start having departments in next week. Like I said, I'm more than happy to go through several of the general government departments tonight that are, you know, pretty much level funded, or I should say level serviced. I have a pretty good grasp of, what departments are asking for. I can answer questions, and if there's more beyond that, we can absolutely have the department head in. And then starting next week, I'll plan to pull together 2 of the larger departments per meeting. And then I think at that point, by the end of February, we'll have a pretty solid budget, except for the schools we're still working through. But as far as the town side of things, we'll actually probably be done by the end of February with some minimal
that'd be
critiquing.
great. Yeah, that'd be great. Okay, yeah, I mean, if you want to share your screen, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, can everyone see the spreadsheet?
Yes.
Yeah.
So what you'll see here is your typical finance committee budget sheet. Something we started doing last year, I think it's helpful, is an administration recommended budget. My goal this year, at least, was really working through those preliminary meetings, try to get the department requests to match what I'm recommending. And that really should be the case all along, unless that for some reason the department just doesn't want to change things. But I also thought it would be helpful to show you some of the initial requests and what we've done to kind of pare things back, work through, make sure we're level servicing. So you'll see here, moderator salary, selectman salary, those were all level funded. Town administrator salary, that's my contracted wage for next year. The selectman clerical, this is for the, one thing actually I forgot to mention, all of our wages in here are with an anticipated 2% COLA. So we have that wage and personnel public hearing on February 27th. One of the proposals will be a 2% adjustment. So that we've taken that into account. If that changes, then that 2% will obviously be reflective of that. But 2% is what we agreed to with the unions. So we anticipate that being the same for non-union. So the orange is the non-union personnel. You'll see there under selectmen expense. So this is a good example of kind of where I wanted to demonstrate the initial request versus the recommendation. The initial request was the $15,050. The reason for that was we don't have any line item dedicated to consulting. And throughout the year, I mean, various things can come up where we may need a consultant unexpectedly to come in. Yeah, I mean, you name it. This year, for instance, the landfill that the town owns is in need of some repairs. Luckily, we actually ended up getting a donation from McDonald Industries to cover the engineering cost. It's something we could always go to the reserve fund if we needed to. But my thought is consulting, usually use consulting of some sort throughout the year. So I initially requested it. I ended up taking it out because the budget's tight this year, but that was that initial request. The increase here from the 3925 to the 5,000, there really wasn't anything in there for me to attend conferences or meetings. It always historically come out of the recruitment and training budget. I know there's several conferences and meetings that I attend annually, so it's wise for us to budget for those. So that's that increase there. Under the law account, we actually have a reduction here. Initially, I was requesting 143,200. The initial increase represented the fact that we're going to be paying our labor council out of this budget. We had been allocating part of that through ARPA funding. ARPA funding obviously needs to be committed by the end of this calendar year. But then further reviewing the budget, we had historically accounted for about $12,000 in cable contract negotiation for council. We just wrapped up our cable contract for 10, and we're good for 10 years. So that's the reason we were able to reduce that a little bit there. Electricity, this you're going to see across the board for all of our buildings. I'm sure as you recognize in your homes, electricity costs have gone up. We did just bring on a new energy manager consultant who's looking to contract at a lower electricity rate for all of our municipal buildings. So we're hopeful that the impact won't be quite as large as we initially anticipated, but there still is an increase. Town meeting warrants, I reduced this. You can see in 22 we expended 6904, but we've really cut back a lot of the costs associated with this was printing our annual reports. we don't really print many annual reports anymore. We post it online. That's where most people access them. So cutting back to the 6,000 is definitely reasonable in my eyes. The audit, this is a contracted rate, goes up to the 33,500. FinCom clerical, that's estimated at the new wage rates. The FinCom expense, we level
Well,
funded.
that's an increase. Why is the audit increasing by $1,000?
That was our contracted rate. It increases $1,000 each year.
That's in the contract?
It is. Yep.
Hmm.
Yeah. Was it a 3-year contract, Sandy?
Yeah, that's a 3-year contract.
And Jim, part of this is subsidized by the water department because they're at an enterprise fund. So I think it's
Also
85.
by solid waste.
Yes. Yeah. But the full amount is budgeted here because that's where it comes out of.
Right.
And so next year it'll go up to 34.5, and that's the last year of our contract.
Okay.
Accountant salary, again, we're recruiting for an accountant, but we budgeted I think it's step 3, whatever Sandy would have been at, we budgeted to be safe to give us a little bit of flexibility in recruitment. The same thing with the assistant town accountant. The accountant expense, there was a minimal increase here. The reason for this was the anticipation of, new accountant having to attend different trainings. Sandy has been gracious enough and shouldn't have, but has not put in for mileage always and things like that. So we need to make sure that's reflected in the budget there. Office machine expense is level funded. Treasurer collector salary, again, this is based on the compensation classification study for both the salary of the treasurer collector and the clerical. Her expense budget are again level funded. The collector expense that did have a $1,000 increase. That's just mainly because of postage, I believe was that expense. You'll see the banking and payroll expense. We have a contract with a payroll company. They've adjusted their fees quite significantly. So initially we anticipated it being double. After reviewing the contract with Sandy and Linda, we feel 13,000 is enough, and actually probably a little bit more, but we want to be safe. But it's an increase, unfortunately, we just have no control over. Tax titles level funded. Town clerk salary, again, this is based on the compensation classification plan for both the wages. Her expense budget has a minimal increase just with the costs going up. The election budget does have a significant increase. The reason for that is we have 4 elections and over the next fiscal year. So she has to pay election workers and just the cost of running the election. So you'll see that varies greatly depending on the year in the election year, so on and so forth.
Hey, Cody, could you jump back to the banking and payroll expense line?
Yes.
Can you just talk a little bit about what that is? I know you said that there was some outside, it's out of our control, but what does the fee actually cover?
They handle our payroll. So it's called CDS, Custom Data Solutions. So internally, our accounting department and our treasurer's office will prepare the payroll, but then it gets sent out to CDS for the actual processing of it. So they handle the stubs, they handle the checks, they take the information, they pay all the banking fees associated with the payroll.
So are we under contract with them? And if so, what's the contract terms with them?
We do not have a contract. We're trying to execute a contract. It came to my attention that we do not have one. So we're working to get one in place. We just basically have a rate sheet. We can share the rate sheet with you if you're interested, but they just update. It's basically they charge us by the, depending on how many checks or different things that they do for us, how many reports they have to do. It's a cost of per unit.
Okay. So are we looking into exploring other options to offer a similar service to us? It just, the only reason I was asking is if we're not under contract with them and they're from last year, they're going to jump up $5,000 in fees on us. That seems excessive for us not to shop it around a little bit.
It is. It's still cheaper than a lot of other options that we've looked at, but to be honest, we're working on implementing a new financial system, and it's going to be much more, it'll have much more ability in it. And my long-term goal, once we have everyone comfortable, would be to potentially take over this ourselves. I think the software, once everyone's comfortable, may have the ability to make it much simpler for us to take that on. But yeah, we're constantly looking at these things, especially in a year where there's an increase like this, I should say.
Okay, thanks, Cody.
Carol, you have a question? Go ahead.
I do. Do we not do direct deposit
We do.
for everybody? It's mandatory for everyone.
No, it is not mandatory.
Why isn't it? It is for most.
That's a good question, Cheryl.
Well,
It's something that we've never felt that we should force people to do direct deposit. So
Well-
we've just never made it mandatory.
We may certainly look to do that again. It's kind of the things we're looking at for efficiencies. We may certainly look to make that mandatory in the future. I will note that that's not a significant additional cost here. We don't have tons of employees who opt for a paper check. I'd say 90 to 95%, still
Do direct
opt for the direct deposit. So it's not a significant cost, but in the eyes of efficiency, especially if we start taking this on ourselves in the future, we'll certainly look to make that mandatory.
Okay.
Well,
Thanks,
one
John.
thing about that is not everybody has how should I say, a checking and or banking account. And live check is a way of life. So it's hard to force somebody to take a direct deposit.
No, but they do have other options out there.
I have payroll cards and things of
Yeah,
that nature,
exactly.
but once again, those you opt into,
Right.
Yeah.
Any other questions on the payroll?
Cody, before we go much further, I wanted to circle back to item number 5, spreadsheet item 9, line 9, selectmen expense.
Yep.
You said you took the consulting fee out of there for the landfill. Last year, we had that money in the Board of Health.
So, I was using that as an example, Frank. There's so annually we pay for consulting for the landfill. That's part of a monitoring contract. We've
Correct.
had some damage to the landfill that we need repairs. That's outside of that. So that would be an, outside consultant that we may need to bring in to look at that. It's an unexpected, so that doesn't take away from the budgeted amount in the Board of Health budget. That's the monitoring. This is, we had some damage. We need to repair the damage. We need a consultant to come in, look at it, and come up with some plans for us. But that's an example. Another example could be, we have a project going on. We need an outside consultant to come in and look at it, from the town's perspective. We had a labor issue, for instance, and, it's not really council, but we needed someone to come in and conduct an outside investigation. It could be, you'd hire a consultant. So it's not one specific thing. It's just typically sometimes the need for consultants come up throughout the year, and maybe you don't, right? Maybe it's not needed, but that was my initial thought for it. And then again, I removed it, kind of recognizing that the budget's very tight.
Thank you.
And then, so recruitment and employment costs, that is level funded. Our conservation agent, again, this is based on the wage compensation classification plan. Concom expense budget is level funded. Planning board expense budget is level funded. Same with the zoning board of appeals. And then regulatory, again, this is based off of the compensation classification plan. And that consists of the see, that consists of 3 positions, 2 full-time positions and 1 part-time position. That's our building department admin, zoning and planning admin, and then our part-time conservation admin. So that's, I think, a good start for, to go through tonight. Most of the general government stuff. There are some lines missing here that we'll circle back through at a future meeting. We're still, working through those. But if there's any questions on these, I'm more than happy to talk through them at this point.
How are we accounting for the longevity bonuses in each department?
Yeah, where is?
We include that in the salary line. So we looked at, so Sandy has gone out and we do a projected payroll for fiscal 25. That's how we come up with the amounts as far as when they'll get their steps and COLAs. And we look at who has the longevity, and then that number is added in to the line item for salary under that department. So for instance, the selectman clerical, the 94,809 is actually the salary itself number. And then when you add in the longevity of both of those employees, you get the 96,079.
Okay. And that's paid out at like the beginning of the year, the beginning of the fiscal year?
It's paid out on their anniversary date.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. If you look at the budgets as they came through, if you go into like a folder of one of your departments, a lot of them will have filled out the hourly employee wage sheet. And you can see right on that where the longevity is added in.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's broken out in the actual budget reporting, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Usually
Okay.
on the budget sheet it shows it separately.
Yep.
Any other questions on any of these?
On the conservation agent, that's a part-time position, is that correct?
Yeah, we've budgeted for 24 hours a week, Frank.
24, okay.
It varies, with a lot of these lower hourly positions, lower like hours per week. There's some flexibility as far as how many hours they're actually working. So they really like this position in particular. He's in the office 20 hours a week, and then we have the 4 hours kind of that we budget for meetings or things that take place beyond the 20 hours. So I anticipate it'll come in a little bit under budget actually, but we budget for it just in case we need the full 24. And one thing I'll note too, as we look at kind of efficiencies, the Conservation Commission admin had historically been 15 hours a week. I don't anticipate having to fill that at 15 hours a week. It just opened up. And I think having the conservation agent on and just some of the efficiencies that we're looking to bring on with online licensing and permitting, I think we'll be able to reduce that to less than 15 hours a week, which is nice.
So that licensing and permitting will go on the agent's responsibility?
Yeah, they'll be the one reviewing it, looking at the applications. The process will really end up being someone applies for a permit, the admin of the department, whatever department may be, goes on, does an initial look and just says, okay, everything's here. It's not checking to make sure it's accurate, but just saying, okay, yep, you need a copy of the site plan, you need this application and this documentation, it's there, good to go. Admin checks off, and then it would go to the conservation agent as an example to review for the technical aspect of it, accuracy, recommendations, so on and so forth. So it takes a big, there's still some paper involved, but it takes a big part of the administrative work out of it. And that's how we're able to kind of reduce some of the hours and create efficiencies.
Cody, on the planning board expenses, 1 year was 9,049, and then it's nothing after that. What's that from?
Planning board expenses.
Wages.
Planning board wages.
Yeah, that's it. So in fiscal 20, so going back last year, well, actually would have been, I think actually probably 2022. 2022, each regulatory board had its own part-time secretary. So planning board had its own 15-hour-a-week secretary. Zoning Board of Appeals had its own 15-hour-a-week secretary. Conservation Commission had its own 15-hour-a-week secretary. When I got here, the positions were vacant. In the eyes of, again, efficiency and recruitment and retainment, it's nice to have a full-time position to oversee zoning and planning. You know, not only are they here more often, but they're a lot of overlap with zoning and planning. So what we did is we actually combined the two to just be regulatory zoning and planning. So that's why it's been under there. And actually prior to that, it was similarly the case. It just fell under the regulatory budget. And then in fiscal 23, it was just, for some reason, it was put under the planning board separately.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions from anyone? Okay. All right. Yeah. Thanks, Cody. That was definitely helpful. So appreciate that. Moving on the agenda is fiscal 25 capital planning update. So we did hold the meeting last Wednesday to go through the initial set of capital planning requests. So they were from fire and police, and we're scheduling the rest of them to occur actually this Wednesday. So we'll be wrapping that up, and then depending on how long the meeting lasts on Wednesday, we'll either be giving our gathering our recommendations post that meeting, or potentially a subsequent meeting. So that's kind of to be determined at the moment, but within the next week or two, we should have our recommendations for the the planning budget.
It'll be a little bit later than that, Todd, because we are still waiting on our free cash number. In order for you guys to make a recommendation, we need that number. So we're hoping for the beginning of March for free cash.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. All right. And then so moving on, then next item was the conflict of interest training. So just a reminder to complete that if you haven't already. Everybody should receive that from Sue. Next item on the agenda was the Finance Committee Spring Conference. So annually there's a spring conference put on by the Massachusetts Municipal Association. And so it's scheduled to, or was scheduled, I think, to occur on, I think, the 26th of April. I don't see it on their calendar at the moment, but it will be coming up in April or May-ish. And so just wanted to get a sense of if anyone would be interested in attending that. There is a nominal cost associated with attending. It's usually put on from like 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. So, 3 or 4 hours. Lunch is included, part of the fee that's that's required there. But, we do have some funding in our expenses to cover that if folks want to attend. So I just want to get a general sense if anyone would be interested in attending that.
Yeah, I'd like to.
Go ahead, Cheryl.
I'd like to go.
Okay. And have you attended in the past, Cheryl?
I
as
have.
well? Okay. And what would you say is your feedback, I guess, for others that haven't?
I thought it was interesting. They have a variety of speakers on a variety of different things that are, that we need to learn. I thought it was interesting.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Thank you. And I think it's held in like different places as well. So once, they release the full details, I can share that with everyone, but I just wanted to get a sense of, is anyone else interested in maybe attending that?
Yeah, I'd like to go. Todd.
Yeah, I would too.
Same.
Okay. All right. So we'll see if we can, so it's like 3 or 4 people. So I'll share it with the, with the committee once it gets posted on the site. It is mma.org. /event if you want to check it out. They have a calendar posted there, and so you can just keep an eye out and for when that gets scheduled.
Yeah, Todd, I'd be interested depending on when it is in April or May.
Yeah, and the location as well. Like I said, sometimes it's maybe a little bit of a drive.
Sometimes it's far away.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Right.
So, all right. So I'll share the information once that gets published. I did notice though there is a tomorrow the 6th there is a municipal finance 101 webinar from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m.
I know.
That is free and it's available via Zoom if anyone wants to register for that, or if you have availability you want to attend. Then certainly would recommend that as well, just to listen in.
Is that the same as what they had last year?
Yeah, it's the same,
Yeah. Same
yeah,
format, yeah.
yeah, it's just like a high level overview. So maybe if it's like Bill or DJ, some of the newer folks, I guess if you haven't attended that in the past, I think it is, it is valuable if you have the time from 12 to 1 tomorrow.
Is it on their website?
It is, yeah. It's mma.org/event. And you'll see it right on the calendar. There's a button you can register right on the calendar there. Right. And like I said, that's free, so you should just be able to click the button and you'll get the dial in for tomorrow. Okay, all right, so that was that. Next up was the committee liaison updates. Was anything to share, I guess, Jim or Frank or any others? Material developing?
Still working through the zoning bylaw stuff.
Well, working on those signs. That sign is interesting. And talked a little bit about the MBTA's 3A plan there. We're going to kind of put together a draft, we'll have a draft written for us and for review to submit to the state in the short term here, and kind of see where that goes with that.
Okay. All right. Yeah. No.
I'm sorry.
No. Sorry. What were you gonna say?
That'll be interesting to see how that goes.
Oh, sure. Yeah. No. Agree.
Yeah. But had some good meetings with the consultant we had on board. So.
When are you guys scheduled to meet again?
Latter part of the month,
Okay.
I believe.
22nd. So we're a lot of behind the scenes work going on now. We're drafting sets of bylaws and doing some of the nitty gritty stuff. So 22nd, we're hoping to really dive in and start reviewing actual some more drafts of actual things, articles.
Okay. All right. Sounds great. And then, any questions from anyone on that before we move on? No? Okay. Next up was the correspondence and as may arise. I haven't seen anything come across. Did anyone else receive anything? No? Okay. All right. Next on the agenda then is the public participation. I don't know if anyone, Chief, I think you're the only one on.
I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay. All right. And that brings us to the next meeting planning, which is, as you know, we're meeting weekly now for the month of February and through the annual town meeting. So look to touch base again next week. I guess with that being said, would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn?
I've got one question I need to ask.
Go ahead, Frank.
Regarding ARPA funding, do we have a balance left on that?
We can get you the exact amount for the next meeting, Jim. We've depleted most of it. We don't have much left.
Thank you.
So I just want to dovetail into that real quick, Cody. With the governor's announcement on budget cuts and the release of the new Municipal Empowerment Act, has there been anything come across your desk or Sandy's desk to any impact to the town, its dollars, any type of budget restrictions that we need to be aware of, anything coming down the pike?
Yeah, it's a good question. I reviewed the budget cuts that the governor made. just to review any impacts that potentially could come as a result to Halifax. The only impact that I've identified is we received earmark funding as part of the economic development bill last year for treatment of the ponds. They did reduce that by half, from 100,000 to 50,000.
Wow.
It's never a good thing to lose the money, right? But the positive is the ponds are in great shape. And we will be okay. I think we'll still be able to keep up with the ponds, even with the 50,000. Some monitoring, maybe some minimal treatment this next year, but we're in a good spot. But that is the only cut that I'm aware of. If you look on the state's website, the governor's website, there's a list of the cuts made. The goal, I guess, when they made the cuts was really to try to cut more discretionary items, especially ones that hadn't been expended yet. So we hadn't expended the ponds yet because there wasn't a need for it. So they saw that as an area of opportunity to cut.
Okay.
Cody, is there any grants that the town depends on a yearly basis? Because I know she's cutting a lot of the grants in half.
We don't, not discretionary. There aren't any discretionary grants that we rely on annually. So not ones that the governor would be cutting.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Anything else from anyone before we adjourn? No? Okay. Would somebody like to make a motion then to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Cheryl. Roll call vote. Frank?
Yes, to adjourn.
EJ?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes, to adjourn.
Bill?
Yes.
Cheryl?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
And I am a yes as well. Meeting is adjourned at 6:39 p.m. Thank you,
Good night.
everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Everybody.
Night.
Bye.